Hello everyone! So today I want to talk a little about my Inktober experience so far and share my favorite Inktober supplies. Then I will make a little Inktober piece with these supplies, so stay tuned for that. I actually have a bunch of different ink pens and brushes and stuff, and I've been thinking about making a what's the best inking tool kind of video, so leave a like if you like to see that. So these are the things I've been using for Inktober every day so far, and I will probably continue using them throughout the whole month. So we got black India ink from Winsor Newton. I love using this to make ink washes to create shades and contrast. With this I'm using a couple of finer brushes in different sizes. It is also very nice for making line art. When the ink is wet it pretty much works as watercolors and you can move it around, but as soon as it dries it is stuck where it is and it can't be moved, so it works great using under watercolors. Then we have a UniPin fineliner. I have them in a bunch of different sizes, but I have mainly been using this 0.2 one. This is probably my all-time favorite fineliner. I've been using them for years now, and I just like the way it feels on the paper and that it is pigmented and it doesn't bleed or feather or spread on the paper. And another pen I've been using a lot this Inktober is the Posca brush pen. I found this by accident actually, a lucky accident I have to say, because I didn't know that Posca pens came with brush nibs too. It may be a new thing. I believe it's more like a paint marker than ink, but I just love that it is super opaque and dark, so it is perfect for ink drawings. Then the pen I've been using for every single Inktober piece so far is the Zig Mangaka flexible pen, and I'm sure you heard me talking about this one before. It has one of these semi-flexible plastic brush nibs and I love it. Since the nib is stiffer but still flexible, you will get a lot of control over the lines. I had to order a new one actually, since this one has been so well used during this past month. For the highlights I'm using the Uniball Signo pens in two different sizes. The bigger one is super opaque and they don't clog as easy as the Jelly Roll gel pens for example. I've also used these Molotov masking fluid pens a couple of times to create negative space. So that is basically all the stuff I use for Inktober. I also have some other favorite inking tools I like to use, like the Copic gasenfude brush pen with a real bristle tip. It is super flexible and you can get super thin and super thick lines with the same pen. I usually save this for my marker work since it is alcohol proof. Then we have the Zig Catoonist brush pen, also with a real bristle tip. I love using these for adding outlines for watercolor work for example. Then we have the Zig Bimoji brush pen, also with this kind of semi-flexible nib. If you're not used to brush pens, I can really recommend these kinds of pens to start with, since they're more easy to control. So that is basically all the stuff I use for Inktober. As I mentioned in the beginning, I would love to make a video just trying out a bunch of different inking supplies like brush pens and fineliners, so let me know if you think that's a good idea. Then one last thing I want to show you is the sketchbook I've been making all my Inktober pieces in. I wanted to collect them all together and I also needed something heavier that could take a lot of water and a lot of ink. So when I found this watercolor sketchbook from Moleskine, I thought it was perfect and it is truly amazing. I've been using both sides of the pages and the black isn't showing through at all. I love the laying format and that the pages lays flat, so I can really recommend this sketchbook. So let's make today's piece. I don't follow any prompts or anything. Making one drawing every day is challenging enough, but I will make a video when Inktober is done showing you all the pages like an Inktober sketchbook tour, but if you can't wait to see them, I post them every day over at Instagram and Twitter. So I use a blue erasable pencil for the sketch. This is a Pilot color in a mechanical pencil. I like the blue since it doesn't show through the ink too much if I can't fully erase it. And I must say that this sketchbook is quite durable. Sometimes I can draw something and erase it 2 or 3 times before I'm happy with it, and the paper still looks nice even after that. So I could just go in with a Mangaka brush pen and do the line work with it directly, but I prefer doing a lighter line work with a UniPin fineliner first, because when I erase the sketch underneath, the lines will fade a little anyway, so I find it better to do a lighter ink sketch and then go over with the brush pen after that. And I don't have to go over all the lines if I don't want to. I can leave a little bit of the lighter line work peeking through for some extra line weight. My favorite part with these Inktober pieces is adding the ink wash. I used ink wash for almost all the pieces in this sketchbook and I find it so relaxing for some reason. I think making these pieces in grayscale is one of the reasons that I managed to participate all the day so far. And I don't have to worry about colors or anything, just creating contrast and shading. I know that some people like using colored ink, but since I usually work in a lot of colors, working in a grayscale makes my Inktober pieces stand out more from the rest of my work. I used the masking fluid pen to paint some leaves in her hair, so when I remove the masking fluid it will create a negative space. It is kind of like using the whiteness of the paper as paint, you know, which adds more details and things to look at in the drawing, and I think it is a nice little effect. I often use the Posca brush pen for the parts that I want solid black, because it is super opaque and it's easy covering up larger areas with it. It is a little trickier to use for the smaller details since it is kind of weird to control, to be honest. The nib is super soft, but for the less detailed work it works great. I create the ink wash just by mixing water with a little bit of ink in a porcelain mixing cup. Porcelain is great since the ink doesn't stain it and it's easy to wash. The ink I am using has a warmer tone to it, so it can almost look a little brownish or sepia in different lights, but when it is pure ink it is super black. What I also like is that you can layer it multiple times to get even darker shades, so you can build up the shades and the layers with the same ink wash, which is pretty handy. And I say it once again, this sketchbook is fantastic. It can hold so much ink and water without crumbling or tearing or anything, and the ink isn't showing through on the other side of the page. The paper does warp and bend a little, but not too bad. So I thought I also talk a little about my thoughts about Inktober. I wasn't planning to participate until like a week before it started, so it was kind of a bit of an impulse thing, but I figured it would be a good challenge for me drawing something every day for a month, and I would be super proud of myself if I could do it. It is such a good practice, and something I've already become better at, I think, is making finished pieces without a whole lot of prep work. I just sketch directly on the page and then I will go with that, which has made me loosen up a little more and feel more spontaneous about my art. And even if I'm not 100% happy with the drawing, and trust me, that have happened so many times, I finish it anyway and then I move on to the next drawing. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece, the most important thing is just creating something. And honestly, it has actually been easier than I first thought, making a drawing every day. I definitely do not draw every single day usually, but now I find it very relaxing taking an hour every night making my ink pieces, and I think I will actually miss my meditative Inktober evenings. I do also believe that having all the pieces collected in one sketchbook like this makes me more motivated to actually draw every day, because then it becomes even more noticeable if I would skip a day, and my OCD wouldn't allow that. And I think that the format or the size of the drawing helps me a lot. This sketchbook isn't super big, so there isn't too much space to fill out, so it feels more doable. So if you're trying to fill out a whole sketchbook, don't pick the biggest one. Then I finish with some details with the gel pen for some extra highlights and adding the final touches. I love the little pumpkin earrings and the cat, of course, even if the ears turned out a little too long perhaps. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this painting and perhaps got some tips for some new inking supplies. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on that little bell icon to get notified whenever I post a new video. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Keep drawing my happy cat. Bye!